Not like George Bird?
George Bird? Well, you know, George retired, but he retired into his job.
Mark, Duke just shared that it's been 1979, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Duke knew that.
I was your first graduate.
There you go.
Still has marks. You broke him in well. And it looked very well.
We had a lot of fun, Duke. I'm going to be talking about SWD, and I'm going to be talking about well.
That's all right. It's just me.
It'll come back.
We had to reshare.
Just hold on.
Okay, so I'm going to do this fairly quickly, but about 20 years ago, I got interested in organic agriculture as well as conventional agriculture, and so this is kind of a throwback to some of that stuff we were doing back then. And that's not it. It's the bottom one. Okay. So one of the things that is true about all of this is that how you look at it and what you look at is really important in terms of assessing what the impact of something like SWD would be in the presence of pesticides, in the presence of biological control agents, in the presence of weather changes, et cetera. So when we look at the kind of things that drive the market, I don't have to go through this very much with any of you, but there's consumer demand, market demand, modifications of existing MRLs going on all the time, arguments all over the place about that. And there's a political process also going there. And it creates a grower's dilemma long term. And that dilemma is capitalized and exploited by an invasive species like SWD. So SWD is pretty amazing little creature. And maybe if you haven't seen those before, it's got the business to do it. It can saw its way into stuff and get stuff done. So when we look at biopesticides as a potential, you know, it's mostly only organic producers that may be interested in that. But in the long term, in terms of resistance management and other features of managing pests, we need to think more broadly. And so I brought in these biopesticide advantages to point out what one can look at in terms of MRLs, in terms of human impacts, in terms of minimal PHIs, in terms of other things that make an approach using bio.
That's me again. I'm trying to get it up. So
You're trying to
people
get me done really
Yes.
fast.
Trying to get it so people can see it on the other
All
end.
right, great. One of the features that comes out at the bottom, of course, is an economical, where we're at and what we're going to do. So at the Northwest Research Station up here, I wanted to report one research project that we had this past year. It's SWD. It was a kind of a smaller version of what I did on farm, but we only had one SWD that came out of that plot in all of that work. And that's because we don't have enough trees. So you guys, if you want to expand the research and keep it going, you're going to have to put some more trees in the ground to do more of this work. Do you believe that, you guys that are here? You think that's true? I think so. So one of the things I wanted to talk about briefly is it's not trivial to find out how many SWDs you have in the bottom of a bunch of cherries. And it's actually quite a task, a step-by task, and then you got to identify them and get them out. So it's pretty challenging. This is my portable one. I can take mine portable with pieces of plywood and stands, and then trays, and crush those babies, let them swim around a while, and then pick them out and identify them. But it takes quite a process actually to measure accurately how many SWD might be in a number of cherries. So this trial was in Northwest, and it focused on SWD populations up there, and I've been sampling up there for a number of years. And we were looking at various kinds of traps, and so was people here at the station. We're doing the same kind of thing. One of the challenges in this study was initially when I started out doing this, we found very few SWD. We had to get better about it, so I moved over out of a conventional system into an organic system and began looking at what was going on there because I thought we'd have more pressure in there, and we did. So we set up a replicated block of 15 trees each and assessed the larvae and adult SWD numbers in that project. And then we monitored through the season, looking at surrounding habitat populations as well. The orchard was sprayed by growers in normal process. And once SWD were detected, sampling occurred at two times a week through the rest of the summer, and that's the technique we used. The results of the trial at the grower farm in Northwest Michigan showed several things. Larvae in the organic fruit. When we came in, I was absolutely blown away by where we went from a straight line wind, almost blowing over all the trees, to hail with falls of hail like that. Fortunately, I got under a tree that was leaning over. It didn't fall on my rig. I only got 3 or 4 dings, but the other guys that were up there, their rigs really got hurt. So it was really exciting, a really exciting summer running around doing that. And we compared the larvae in an organic orchard in different sites and looked at adults swept out of that orchard. We even found the adults out quite a bit further than I even anticipated finding any in that block. So assessing the incoming SWD and cherry fruit fly also we were looking at in the study. We compared the incoming number of SWD and the cherry fruit fly adults in conventional and organic blocks. We also looked at yellow sticky traps and other lures. There was, as I mentioned before, another lure study going on pretty close to that. And we attracted and trapped SWD and cherry fruit fly throughout that whole thing. So when we looked at the yellow sticky trap counts across that period of time, we're looking at SWD in organic, we're looking at cherry fruit flies in organic, and the same in conventional. And what we saw was a few in mid-July, and then just right through the ceiling, population jumping up. And in a way, this wasn't a huge surprise, but it was really difficult to deal with in terms of doing those trays and getting things analyzed. For the first year orchard comparison, conventional to organic, the organic orchard SWD numbers were significantly higher versus the conventional orchard. SWD detections occurred earlier, 6 to 8 days ahead, and that's significant because of the rate of reproduction that's happening and emergence that's happening then. And the organic sprays did reduce populations, but recovery was very rapid. Post-harvest populations were very high, likely contributed to what was going to happen in future years. And another thing about this particular site, which I didn't appreciate as well as I should have, and that is the proximity of woodlands or set-aside materials were a great habitat for SWD, and there were tons of them in there in wild hosts. So the conventional orchard, on the other hand, had a number of SWDs that were around it. Overall, the SWD and cherry fruit fly populations were lower. Post-harvest SWD populations were at least 50% lower than the organic block. The conventional orchard did not have woodlands close by. I assumed that was one of the reasons that the population was lower, as well as more efficacious materials used to control it. So the summary of 2016 season, that even when trap catches were low, SWD were laying significant numbers of eggs in these blocks. Numbers of adult SWD and organic plots were roughly similar to conventional plots until just before harvest, as you saw in that data where SWD went right through the roof, and why it's such a huge challenge, not only in conventional, but especially in organic. Observationally, the organic materials perform similarly to conventional products for SWD and cherry fruit fly up until about 9 days to harvest, and then they couldn't keep up. I don't think you can spray them out with those materials. You need conventionals to do it. I think obviously more work is needed in the organic arena, and we used to talk a lot about organics, but since SWD's been around, we talk about it less. So if there's a question, I'd be glad to do it, and I race through that so you guys can get out of here.
Question right here in the back.
Yeah.
What were the organic materials? Did you say that at the beginning, or?
Yeah, well, a bunch of different ones were used in the site, but Entrust was used in this block, and as well as several other materials. Brandivo was used, and I could get the spray record for you if you're really interested. Yeah. Yeah.
So were they sprayed in a rotation, or was it separate blocks for the second?
Well, the orchard was regularly sprayed, and I was doing additional spraying on the edges of that block, so that it was even increased spraying over what the conventional application would be, or the organic application.
Well, it's more of a comment on Brandivo.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Some data from Switzerland recently showed that in terms of spotting Drosophila, it doesn't really kill them by direct contact, but it does affect their fecundity. So it reduces their
Yes.
it reduces their fecundity over time. So blueberries, we've been kind of suggesting that growers spray it early in the season when populations are low, keeping your sprays in trust later on in the season, and then rotate.
Yeah, and these materials were used early as well because there's not a lot of choices or chemistries to be used, so they would have been used in that sense as well. The other thing that I really didn't talk a lot about relative to that is the immigration from wild areas close by, where there were all kinds of posts in there that supported SWD. And I think that situation, the situation of wild host close by is as big a situation as we've got really for sustaining SWD in orchards.
Any other comments?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation and for your many years of service to this industry and your interest in many aspects of the food industry throughout your career. Thank you. Do anyone have any last minute comments that you'd like to share